Hey everyone, and welcome to the Balanced Bodies Blueprint. I am your host, Vinny Russo.
And I'm your co-host, Dr. Erin Stansfield.
And we're shifting gears from all the conventional fitness narrative you hear on most fitness podcasts, as our main emphasis lies in preventative healthcare, adopting a holistic approach to nutrition, and challenging the traditional views on various fitness topics.
Our mission with this podcast is to provide you with the information you need to achieve optimal health.
And on today's podcast, Dr. Erin is back in the game. We know we missed her last week, but we are going to be going over the 5 red flags to spot BS, which stands for bullshit, if you didn't know, on social media. You might see this in marketing. You might see, a lot of influencers doing these types of things, but these are 5 major red flags that if you see it, you call BS on it, plain and simple. We're not going to waste anybody's time. We're going to dive right into it. We feel like the shorter episodes are actually doing a little bit better in terms of people listening to the full episode, as well as the number of views that we actually get and downloads. So we're going to try to keep this on the shorter side. We don't have our normal podcast equipment, which is why the quality of this might be a little bit off. But we've been traveling the last couple of weeks back and forth. So that's the reason why you have this quality today. So diving into it, I'm going to start us off. And I know, Dr. Erin, you're the one who kind of shed the light on this for me and opened my eyes.
You're going to give me credit for this one?
I'm going to give you credit for this one. But it's supplements without supporting research. Most supplements that are being thrown out there today, they really do lack the appropriate scientific research, meaning that they probably have not undergone the testing needed to validate the effectiveness or to validate what they are promoting that this supplement actually does. And when you do this, when you take these supplements thinking that you're going to get these results that they're promoting, some ingredients that are actually in there that aren't being regulated might have some unintended side effects. My dog is snoring right now. Hold on. Hey, we gotta get you the fuck out of here. Hey, I'm back.
We couldn't hear him snoring, or I couldn't hear him snoring.
Oh, well, no, he was getting louder and louder, so got him right when it started. So going back to the supplements without the research. So investing in these supplements with, thinking you're going to get these results and there's no actual evidence supporting it, you're wasting money and it's causing you to take your financial resources and dwindle them for no reason, right? Just for the fact that, you want this quick fix, right? So a lot of people, and from what I've seen, is they want the quick fix. So when a supplement comes out and says you could do this, get excited and they want to try it because if it does work, then they reap the benefits of it. But because things are unregulated, these claims, they go unchecked. And pretty much you have these companies that can just say that this certain product, which might be baby powder in a fucking pill, will give you some significant weight loss or will enhance muscle growth or will suppress your myostatin or something to that effect, right? So my whole thing is if you are going to take supplements, number one, if you are deficient in a vitamin or a mineral, taking that supplement might help, right? So it's not going to harm you unless there's contradictions. But honestly, if you're deficient, you might as well invest in some supplements to kind of help you there. And you want to cover the basics. So go with a brand that is, I want to say third-party tested, but honestly, that doesn't even show that much validity anymore. But they would be a little bit better than someone who's not. But you want to stick with the foundation of supplements that have been researched. For example, vitamin D, for example, magnesium, fish oils, which Dr. Erin, if you really want to touch on, you could touch on it. How too much fish oil might actually be bad for you, but taking a decent amount is actually good for you. So sticking with those basics, I don't think you could go wrong, but trying to do stuff with this pre-workout, overloading on niacin, that type of stuff, it's not worth it. It's not worth the side effects. So Dr. Erin, what do you guys say about that?
Well, I'd like to touch on a few things that you said. So I think you're kind of highlighted what the regulation. So the FDA considers supplements foods and not drugs. Therefore, they are unregulated. So it is like the wild, wild west, essentially. People or supplement companies can put anything in their supplements, so to speak, as long as I think it was passed in 1994 and 1995. It's on this list of approved uh, FDA list of approved supplements. So those existed way back in the 90s. Most supplement companies use some variation of those, so therefore they are unregulated. But you don't know what you're getting. So there's the regulation piece of it where it is completely unregulated. And then on top of that, just in general, like looking, you said something about research. If you look at research, if there is any research, it's usually either in vitro studies or animal studies, right? It's very little human research has been done on supplements per se. Now, there's a difference between vitamins and supplements, and I think we're going to do a whole episode on this. And this industry in general. So I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but I will say that there is a difference there. You touched on some vitamins that might be helpful. And even there, you have to be very careful because some of the vitamins aren't regulated, like you said, and you recommended third party, identification. Again, you can't really trust that. There's so much variation and little regulation in the area that as long as it's not doing quote unquote harm, then these supplement companies can operate. I will say that the FDA does have a website where you can report any adverse effects. And I will also say that supplements do have adverse effects. So one that was pulled recently was, or not recently, but a while ago, Oxypro Elite. It was causing hepatotoxicity in people. They were getting jaundiced. These were relatively healthy individuals. That supplement was pulled. So the FDA only looks into these supplements when there's an adverse event. And unfortunately, it relies on the public to report those events before they actually put out a warning saying, hey, you probably shouldn't take the supplement. And then they go after the company that might be producing that supplement. So there's a lot of, you have to be very careful. You can't just think these supplements don't cause any health effects. They do. And so you don't know what you're getting. In general, I don't recommend them. Caffeine is considered quote unquote a supplement in some of these industries. I think that's the only one that may be okay depending on the dosage.
Creatine.
You can get caffeine from coffee too. So
What about creatine?
creatine is one supplement that I would say is good for you. Now, the source where you get your creatine is a whole different ballgame, right? So the testing between, even if you have a supplement company, the testing between the batches of of the drug that you're getting, because it is a drug, technically speaking, is not verified because they don't use techniques to actually look at the consistency between the batches of drugs. So there's variation within the company of making the supplement. And like I said, we'll go into a whole episode about this, but and we'll have somebody who knows this industry well and query them about it. But so you have to be careful. I do think that there has been enough research on creatine done that it does help with muscle building if you are resistance training. It's probably the only supplement that I would recommend is creatine. That doesn't mean that I wouldn't recommend vitamins, but creatine is probably the only supplement that I would say is there's enough research behind versus anything else out there on the market.
Yeah, it just sucks because it's almost like like with nutrition coaches and fitness coaches, where you have a select few that really do the work and really put in an effort to give very, very quality service. And then you have these other ones that kind of drag that down to where it's like, you're just giving out cookie cutter shit, right? With the supplements, there's going to be some companies that actually do the work and put in, but you can't trust it because the majority isn't really
I
there.
don't
And the research, it's not there.
I honestly don't trust it unless you're, even if you went and inspected the company. One, you'd have to be trained in that kind of biochemistry, and two, a lot of them can't even afford the appropriate equipment to, like I said, test between batches of drugs that they're making or of quote unquote supplements that they're making. So there's a lot of variation in what you're getting from pill to pill.
Yeah. All right. Now, I did say we were going to be a little bit quick, but with the rate that we're going, it's going to be dragged out. So let's go right into yours. What was yours? One of yours.
So I think, and I think this one is probably oversaid currently by most physicians that are board certified. But you got to watch out for fake weight loss drugs. And I think the biggest ones are the GLP-1 medications, right? So fake Ozempic per se. And unfortunately, there's a lot of, even, you'll see ads, a lot of doctors with MDs that are selling fake compounded drugs. So you have to be very wary of that. Now, why? Why? Well, one, they're not FDA approved, so there's that. And two, at the very mild end of the spectrum, they might not be effective. And at the very extreme side of the spectrum, they can cause poisoning and kidney failure, organ damage, so and even death, right? So last year, the European Medicines Agency came out and warned against fake Ozempic pens because they actually found insulin in those pens. So people were having major adverse events because of that.
Yeah, we
Um,
touched on that in one of our earliest
yeah.
episodes. Yeah.
So you have to be very, very careful. Compounded Ozempic is not Ozempic,
Yeah.
period. Okay. And you'll see all these niche clinics coming out, and because there's such a shortage and there's such a demand for the drug, uh these these non FDA approved pharmacies, not non FDA approved, they're compounding pharmacies, but the drug is not FDA approved. They're coming out with these formulations that look like Ozempic, but you don't really know what you're getting. And most medical societies do not recommend the compounded versions of these GLP-1 medications. So if you want to be on the safe side, I would say don't go that route.
Yeah, I would say just use it if you really need it, which will be prescribed to you by a physician, not going through a clinic. I mean, you touched a little bit on how, like, you got these pop-up clinics or even these MDs, they see a need, right? So the demand is high and the supply is low. So why not find a way to make some extra money by diluting down a semaglutide or something, right? That's not going to have any real effect, but you're going to promote it out there because you know it's in demand and people are going to buy it. So
Yeah. And
it's
anyone
a
who's
sleazy
selling you
business
that,
tactic.
yeah, I
Yeah,
was just gonna say, anyone who's selling you that is trying to make money, period.
yeah.
And it may or may not work. You might see that it does work, but you are taking an enormous risk, and that there might be side effects that you may not be aware of. Um,
The
and
insulin alone, I mean, that would scare the shit out of me. Like, I'm not,
yeah,
no, like, oh, you want some Ozempic? No, I'm good. Like, I'm not doing that.
so, and if you really are a candidate for these medications, it's unfortunate that unfortunately you have to wait for them, for insurance pre-approval, and then also to actually obtain the medication. There's sometimes a wait for that as well. But these places making the fake or compounded Ozempic aren't making the situation any better.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, and that is a huge red flag. And honestly, people like take it seriously. Don't just buy semaglutide from a clinic or Ozempic just from a clinic or a pop-up clinic, because you do run that risk. Let's go into another red flag, which this one really pisses me off. But I will say, and I will admit, in my earlier days, I was one to do this. So influencers that are out of their lane or out of their scope. I am no longer out of my lane or out of my scope because I have Dr. Erin on board, who teaches me a lot about the medical side of things, especially when I ask for questions and she kind of educates me on it. So I'm proud to say that I'm no longer this person. But I used to try to give out information about like how to read labs, and honestly, like I knew something about it, but it's still out of my scope. So I do fall victim here to this, but this is getting out of hand now. You have people like Gary Brecka, who literally was a life insurance salesman for his entire career. And now he's pushing genetic testing and promoting supplements and, you know, make sure you drink your hydrogen water. Well, like you're pushing all this stuff to help that in his pockets, so to speak. But it's funny because you get these people like a Gary Brecka and these functional health practitioners that use scientific words, something like methylation or like mitochondria instability. Like it sounds sexy. Like you want to be like, oh shit, like what does that mean? Like what do you mean? Like, and then you just get fed bullshit and you kind of believe it because you don't know so much about it. Not that there is anything to know about it, but you're like, I don't know about this. I want to hear more about it because maybe it might be wrong with me, right? But if you really talk to people who know what they're talking about, they're going to sound very unsure of themselves because a lot of their answers will be, well, it depends. Because it does. It depends on the situation. There's not going to be a solution. This is the solution if you can't lose weight. No, well, everyone's different, right? But you have these people, and like I've been seeing it all over now, especially with some people that have only competed once and have done really well, and now they call themselves nutrition coaches. When all they're doing is giving out their diet to everyone that comes on as a client. Now, what's really happening there? Can they get results? They probably do because they're just eating a cleaner diet and maybe going into a deficit based off of the previous dieting history. So you might get some results, but it's all bullshit, right? And then you get, well, to stay on them because this just kind of popped in my head. You get these people that are doing this coaching and they're giving out steroid cycles, and it's like to get more enhanced results in their clients, and they don't know how those compounds even interact with each other or how to do it. They're just like, yeah, I heard this, so let me just tell my client to do this, and they pretend like they're some guru. Then you have these chiropractors that are like on all over TikTok now, and they're literally chiropractors, and they dress themselves up in scrubs, and they're basically giving out nutrition and they're giving out hormone advice and how to read labs. And when you go in there and you ask them their credentials, they'll tell you them. But then you ask them questions like, hey, all right, so here are your credentials. You're a chiropractor. Why are you giving out hormone advice? They skip over your question because they know it's out of their scope. It's out of their lane. Now, can they be self-educated on it? Yes. But are they going to be as educated as an endocrinologist on hormones? Fuck no. So it's just everyone's looking to be the smartest person in the room. And to me, it's really diluting the education that we see out there because once you try to be the smartest person in the room, you try to find what separates you. And when you find, you can't really find stuff that's going to separate you in terms of health and wellness. I mean, it's very simple, it's very basic, it's not sexy at all. So, what do you do to differentiate yourself? You make some fucking shit up that sounds good and it makes people want to listen to you and want to believe you. And that's literally what I think has happened with this whole functional health stuff. I mean, I took a course on functional health. I got certified in it. I wanted to see if I was going to learn anything new. Only thing I learned from that was to push supplements on people. And we just talked about how supplements have no real validity to them. So I'm going to come off this little high horse over here. And Aaron, what do you have to say about this?
Well, I think not only influencers are out of their lane, but like even some professionals, right? So like doctors that give out nutrition advice. I'm not qualified to give out nutrition advice. That's why we partnered up, right?
Yeah.
Now, I may have some personal experience. I'm a competitor. I had to diet down during competitions. I learned a lot on my own, but I wouldn't want to be handling anyone's diet. That's not what I was trained in. One of the best pieces of advice that I got in medical school was if you don't know something and a patient asks you, say, I don't know. I can try to find out for you, or I can try to help you find the right resources or the right person, the right specialist, but I don't know the answer to this. And I think that you said it's about the person who knows the most. I think it's more about money, right? So like most of these influencers that are out of their lane, if you notice, they're trying to sell you something. They're trying to push some supplement. They're trying to push some program so that you spend money. And
Yeah, well,
they
I
can't.
also I think that like they go hand in hand because you're not going to buy products off of someone who's an idiot, right? They have to know something that you don't know, and
I was
not
just
now
gonna
they have the
say,
solution, right?
yeah, they use very sexy language and they sell you an easy solution.
Yeah,
And unfortunately, a lot of the real answers to a lot of medical issues or health issues or weight loss issues are not easy answers. They're more complicated, right? And that's where if you actually do have an expert, like you mentioned, they will sit there and there's no hard truth usually. It's usually it does depend on the situation, on, you know, like when I see a patient, I have to look at their entire makeup, their family history, the whole clinical picture before giving them any kind of advice. So if you think that you fall into some cookie cutter, or if some influencer relates to you because they they say something about their story that's similar to your story, it doesn't mean that they have the specific advice that's going to help you. So take it with a grain of salt. Look at the qualifications of anybody giving you advice. That goes for, you know, chiropractors, functional medicine, nurses, even doctors. Like, look at what they're trying to tell you, and look at their qualifications and make sure you trust them before you give your health or you know, take their recommendations.
yeah, and ask questions because if someone's bullshitting you, they're going to slip up. Like you're going to ask them questions, and it's going to be they're going to make some shit up off the top of their head. Someone who knows their shit is always going to say, like I said earlier, well, it depends. Or they're going to be like, I don't know, but I'll find out for you, right? Kind of like what Dr. Anna just alluded to. So yeah, let's go over to your next red flag.
All right, so this is a big pet peeve of mine. It's a promotion of peptides. Peptides are everywhere. So we see ads for them all the time. I get questions all the time. And just, you know, for some background, the FDA has seen a rapid increase in the number of new drug applications submitted for peptide drug products. Um, but the problem is the quality and the equivalence between generic and brand name peptide products. So, so some peptides are actually clinically indicated for medical conditions, right? Um, but you have to be very careful about who's giving you the peptide drug. So peptides with greater than 40 amino acids are considered proteins and biologics, and they cannot be compounded essentially. So a compounding pharmacy usually cannot produce these unless they have a biologics license application, a BLA. And there's specific regulations that the FDA put out. So a 503A pharmacy cannot obtain a BLA, which is a lot of the compounding pharmacies. It bans them from compounding peptides. However, here's a loophole for compounding pharmacies. Most
Well,
peptides are
do we want to
less.
tell them? Do we want to tell them right now? Because what
Well,
if they don't know the loophole?
yeah, well, they do know the loophole that if you're in this industry, you know it. So most peptides um, can be less than 40 amino acids, and so they don't meet the legal requirements for compounding. However, to crack down on that, to, you know, they do know this, so that's kind of where they were getting away with making these quote unquote peptides. The FDA started cracking down on the bulk drugs, so the drugs, the precursors to make these drugs that were less than 40 amino acids.
Yeah.
So they are trying to crack down on this because now why? Well, you got to ask yourself why. Well, the FDA, as I mentioned, has a website. It's pretty good. And it actually, you can look up different peptides. So, you know, like, for example, I get questions about BPC 157 on the website. Just so you know, as far as adverse effects, it may pose a risk for immunogenicity. What does that mean? An overreactive immune system. So if you're prone to having an autoimmune disease, you might have an adverse reaction. It depends on the route of administration, but basically, a lot of these peptides lack sufficient information to know whether the drug can cause harm when administered to humans. So a lot of the studies are done, again, in animals and not in humans. And the other issue is some of these peptides, and I'm thinking tesamorelin here, for physicians, it is clinically indicated for HIV patients that have abnormal fat distribution, lipodystrophy, fancy term, for abnormal fat distribution. So, of course, in the industry, people are like, will this help obese patients that have more abdominal fat? And that is being looked at, but we don't have enough data to actually say, yes, it's good, or no, it's bad. And you know, the long-term effects haven't been evaluated sufficiently. And further, you know, when you're getting a peptide, like I said, if you're getting it from one of these compounding pharmacies, you don't know what you're getting. You really don't know what's in that drug because, again, the testing isn't there. And again, the FDA is trying to crack down on even the, you know, the promotion of those peptides by saying these bulk items are going to be banned. So I think there's going to be a challenge for those compounding pharmacies that are selling those peptides, but be very careful about peptides. In general, I don't think, I would not recommend them. I don't think there's any medical society out there that would say, yes, take this peptide, unless, you know, you're diabetic and you need something that's medically, clinically indicated. And you're getting it from a pharmacy, not a compounding pharmacy.
Yeah, and
So that,
even on
yeah.
those websites and stuff, if you look into them and you want to try to take them, they all say not for human consumption, right? They all say that on 'em, plain and simple. So that should be a telltale sign right there. But you also mentioned like how it, could help, or one of them, what'd you say, testimonial?
Tesamorelin, yeah.
Yeah, that it could help with the adipose tissue and different areas or something like that.
Yes.
The
Well,
wrong distribution of it, or in HIV patients, right? And
in
people are
HIV,
saying,
it's
yeah,
it's clinically approved, but that's the only indication for it because it's been looked at, right?
yeah, yeah.
Hasn't been
But what I
looked
was
at. Yeah, go ahead.
what I was gonna say is people see that and they're like, oh my God, like, yeah, belly fat, right? And their mind goes there. But what if, because it's tested in a very select group of people that it's approved for, what if it goes after visceral fat or organ fat, right? Which protects and cushions the organs. That's not good. You don't want to lose that fat either. You know what I mean? Visceral fat, yeah, but there's so much around the organs though. It's protective, and you need that. And what if it just goes after that? Like, you don't know. So
Yeah, no,
definitely be careful with it.
that is actually a valid concern.
Yeah,
And there's other ones like postulated potential side effects are insulin resistance. Um, the studies haven't demonstrated that yet, but it's also, you're right, it could target different fat areas, and that could be a risk. Or maybe it doesn't, you know, like a bad plastic surgeon that's maybe getting abdominal fat, maybe you get some of it and not all of it. And so
yeah,
you have a lumpy looking appearance. We don't know.
yeah.
So you got to be very, very careful when something hasn't been, a drug in particular, has not
Mhm.
been tested in humans enough to actually know the long-term side effects.
Yeah. The thing is the long-term side effects, because I believe, isn't insulin growth factor a peptide?
Mhm.
Yes, and that's done by many professional bodybuilders to help with the increase in their muscle size.
Yep.
Now, but what's the long-term effect of that? Yeah, initially you might have short-term gratification with help in enhancing the muscle mass on your body, but what is the downstream effect long-term with that? Right. And that's what we don't know, and that's what we need to be careful about.
Well, yeah, we kind of we do know, and unfortunately, but it's something that's not clinically indicated, right? So, you know, you have to be very, very careful about what you're ingesting for how long, and the source, like where are you getting it from? Is it a reliable source?
Exactly.
Um, because usually if you're getting it for a non-medical indication, then it's not going to be a reliable pharmacy.
Yeah. All right, let's go into the last red flag. And Aaron, I'm not sure how much you could touch on this one, but you could probably touch on it. But the red flag is weight loss challenges which are given out by fitness coaches. So most of the weight loss challenges you're going to see, it's going to be like 6-week, 8-week, 12-week challenges, and they're going to be given out by these nutrition coaches, fitness coaches, personal trainers. And what they do with these challenges is they encourage extreme dieting combined with excessive exercise. So just listen to that, right? That's promoting unhealthy practices for the sake of a quick result, meaning get in 6 weeks, 8 weeks, or 12 weeks. So what this entire challenge does is it puts a big emphasis on prioritizing the short-term instant gratification outcome, where it neglects the importance of the sustainable long-term habits that you need to develop in order to have long-lasting results. And not only are the protocols that are provided very generic and very cookie cutter because there's no individuality whatsoever, it puts all of the main focus on the scale, which honestly, it's going to go back up once you're done with this due to metabolic suppression and the rebound effect, which is going to happen because you're going to just go back to the way you were eating normally. So if you have a coach that's out there and they're promoting this weight loss challenge to a ton of people all at once, you have to understand, and I need you to hear me this. I need you to hear me here. You have to understand that there is no way that they could individualize each person's specific plan. They can't do it. Too many people at once. It's overload. There's no way. So they're giving out a generic plan. They're going to give out something very generic that you can find on fucking online. You don't have to waste the $400 for an 8-week challenge. You could just go online and find the same shit, right? Now, people are going to say, people who know me, well, Vin, you ran challenges. I did. I ran a 12-week summer shred challenge, which was all about body composition. Had nothing to do with scale weight. I did not promote the scale weight loss. The winners actually didn't lose the most weight. They were the best transformation in terms of how they looked, increase in muscle mass, decrease in waist circumference. And yeah, scale weight loss comes with the loss of body fat. So you're going to have some of that. But I always made sure, whether I did it by myself when I had Team VR, or whenever I was with a gym, anytime a gym wanted to do a challenge with me, I always said it needs to be a body recomposition challenge, never a weight loss challenge, because we are not in this to just see how much weight we can lose. We want to transform the body, increase the muscle mass, decrease the body fat, make you overall a healthier person. So don't fall victim to this vicious cycle with these weight loss challenges, because what's going to happen is, yeah, you're going to get in there, you'll lose the weight, you'll gain it back, then you got to sign up for their next one just to lose the weight again. You're going to gain it back, sign up for the next one. And it is a continuous stream of money going into that coach's pocket, giving out these weight loss challenges. Now, we tried to grow the business. We needed more. We wanted to have some more lead generation because we don't really do marketing. It's really word of mouth, whoever works with us. So we hired out this company that was supposed to help us with it. They obviously didn't, because a lot of their practices were mainly like manipulation, like let's do these challenges. One of the challenges that we ran together was a step challenge where they were like, hey, run a challenge to increase like the amount of members in your Facebook group. We didn't even listen to that. We ran the challenge within our Facebook group with the members there. And it was a step challenge. It wasn't a weight loss challenge. It wasn't a body transformation challenge. They told us not to do it. And it was one of the coolest challenges that I think I've ever encountered, because everyone was so into it, posting their videos, posting their photos of them walking. We gave out an Apple Watch to the winner. Like, it was so cool to have something that was adding value to someone's life and not reaping a reward of having money come in. It was a free challenge. We didn't ask anybody for money, and we just gave out prizes, right? Just to get people moving in the right direction. Step count, moving in the right direction. It goes hand in hand. But just be careful when you see this stuff all over online, especially now that the summer is going to be coming up. Anything with, getting ready for the holidays, or like get fit before the holidays, or even with the New Year stuff.
Summer.
Yeah, well,
Yep.
summer, I just said that. Summer's right around the corner. So just be careful. If it says weight loss challenge, you don't want to do it. If it's about body recomposition, then check and see, kind of talk to the coach or talk to the person that's giving it out. Also, see how many people are in it. Because if it's whoever signs up is in, it's going to be very generic. I limited my challenges that I ran with Team VR to 20 people maximum. The gym was always 15 people maximum. I can't handle an influx of that and take care of all these people at once and then my clients on the side. Wasn't able to do it. So make sure that you see a limit, make sure that it doesn't focus so much on the scale and weight loss, and it's more about healthier habits and body recomposition.
Yeah, I think any quick fix you got to be wary of. And a lot of weight loss, it's not about weight loss, it's about a lifestyle adoption of changing your mindset. And that's not a short-term thing, that's a long haul game.
Yeah.
So I think anything that's saying a quick fix is you got to be wary of.
Yeah, and it's like us with our clients. We require a 6-month minimum, right? 6 months minimum you have to be with us. Our retention rate is 13 months. Is our average client retention rate is 13 months. People like to stay with us for over a year. Why? Because it's a mindset thing. It's a accountability thing. It's a foundational habit growth type of thing. It's not so much, well, let me see how much weight I can lose in the quickest amount of time, because
Yep.
that's just going to lead to disaster.
So on behalf of Balanced Bodies, we just want to say thank you for joining us on this episode of the Balanced Bodies Blueprint.
We are committed to bringing valuable content. And if you enjoyed today's episode, we'd greatly appreciate it if you can take a moment and like it and leave a 5-star review.
On Apple, just go to the show, scroll down to the bottom and rate it there. If you're on Spotify, go to the show's page, click the 3 dots, and you can rate it there as well.
And if you believe in the power of knowledge, share this episode on your social media to try and get the information out there to as many people as possible.
And as you navigate your own path towards better health, remember that Balanced Bodies is forever in your corner. See you all next week.
The podcast content may include discussions of medical topics and health-related information. However, the information provided should not be considered exhaustive or complete, and it should not be relied upon as a substitute for professional medical advice or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare providers with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment.